Ceahlău, on São Miguel Island in the Azores, cradles two adjacent crater lakes, one vividly cobalt, the other deep emerald, a rare split of color caused by differing mineral and algal compositions found almost nowhere else on Earth. Do you know Uvac Canyon in Serbia shelters Europe's largest colony of griffin vultures and features river meanders so perfect they resemble concentric paintings carved into limestone? Lake Bohinj in Slovenia is fed almost entirely by underground springs and glacial melt, giving it a clarity and coldness so rare that scientists travel here to study untouched alpine waters. Do you know that Lake Bohinj can change color overnight, shifting from deep sapphire to a metallic green after spring thaws, and sometimes reveals submerged stone ridges older than nearby villages? The lake sits in the shadow of Triglav, Slovenia's highest peak, and the valley's karst geology channels hidden streams beneath the surface, where trout and invertebrates thrive. Morning fog drifts over Bohinj like a living map, and small wooden skiffs glide toward solitary coves where shepherds once left offerings to old mountain spirits. In winter, the water can freeze into long, glassy panels, and in summer, its turquoise depths reflect peaks that seem to float on the surface. Along the shoreline, you find stone chapels and century-old alpine huts, silent witnesses to a pastoral life that still depends on seasonal rhythms. From Bohinj, the land climbs toward Vogel and Vogar, cableways that open into trails and viewpoints that naturally lead one's gaze toward the nearby fairy tale slopes of Lake Bled. The Sava Bohinjka River threads from the lake, carrying stories of glacial sculpting downstream into broader European waterways and communities. You can read centuries in the frescoes of St. John the Baptist Church, then step outside to hear only birdsong and the faint clink of cowbells. Conservation here is lived daily. Locals guard water quality and traditional grazing against pressures of mass tourism, preserving an intimate balance. Taste the pressed cheeses sold at the Valley Market, flavors born of alpine herbs, and then follow the river out to landscapes that pull Slovenia toward the Adriatic. Bohinj asks visitors to slow down and listen. Its hush rearranges your sense of scale and insists that some of Europe's truest wildernesses are quietly human as well as wild. As you leave the lake and head over the passes, the valley becomes a hinge connecting remote mountain life to Slovenia's cultural corridors, and Bohinj lingers in memory as a place both fragile and defiantly whole. On Senja Island, Norway, Ceahlău's near-vertical granite face plunges almost 640 meters straight into the cold fjord, a cliff profile found in very few places on Earth. Do you know that Ceahlău on Senja is said by locals to cast a shadow so precise that fishermen once used it as a seasonal calendar for cod migrations? Beyond Ceahlău, Senja stitches together jagged peaks, whispering birch forests, and sheltered bays in an improbable combat. Here, fjords curl inward like ink blots, creating hidden coves where kelp forests glow green under the high summer sun. Drive the twisting national tourist route, and you pass roads cut into rock faces, viewpoints named for ancient sea spirits, and fishing villages that still dry cod on wooden racks. In winter, the same road becomes a corridor of light, where the aurora wavers above black water and snow-dusted ridgelines. Senja's beaches are otherworldly too, with white pebble shores and turquoise shallows that belie the Arctic latitude. Untouched, a stone promenade juts into the ocean, aligning views so precisely that the peaks frame like theater curtains. By tracing its coast, you inevitably start to imagine what lies beyond. The Lofoten silhouettes on the horizon, the open sea that has shaped these people for centuries. Senja doesn't shout its secrets. It offers a slow unpeeling. One cliff, one fort, one salted story at a time. If you think you know Arctic islands, Senja will rearrange your assumptions with a single sunrise hitting Ceahlău's face. Stay with us, and we'll follow that light along the roads and coves, revealing the hidden chapters of an island that feels like Norway, condensed. Logar Valley, or Logarska Dolina, is one of the world's most uncanny glacial U-shaped valleys, preserving uninterrupted human hay meadows and moraines that have survived industrial agriculture. Do you know Logar Valley hides Rinka Falls, a nearly 90-meter drop that gives birth to the Savinja River, and once drew summer pilgrims seeking the cool hidden grotto behind its curtain? Centuries-old shepherd huts scatter across terraced meadows, where traditional haymaking still follows rhythms unchanged since medieval times. The valley's rim rises into the jagged arms of the Senja Alps, creating natural corridors for chamois, roe deer, and rare alpine orchids. In spring, the pastures explode with wildflowers, and the air smells of dried hay and pine resin. In autumn, those same slopes turn burnished gold and copper, while winter folds the valley into a hush of snow that reveals secret ice sculptures along frozen streams. Local farmers and beekeepers practice an almost vanished stewardship, mowing by hand and stacking hay into conical stog dries that become sculptural markers of human and natural partnership. Protected as a landscape park, Logar's silence is deliberate, managed to keep wildlife corridors intact, and low-impact tourism focused on walking and small-scale homestays. Visit with a curiosity for the small things: the pattern of lichen on a rock, the way water diverts around a root, the placard that names a centuries-old trail. Leave knowing that the same valley that sheltered pastoral life for generations is connected to wider alpine systems, a hinge between villages, rivers, and peaks that speaks quietly of Europe's living past. Later in the film, we'll trace the path of the Savinja beyond Logar, watching how it threads into Slovenia's lowlands and links mountain life to market towns. But here, in this glacial bowl, time feels measured by seasons and the long patience of stone, where every step reveals a layer of history. If you think you know alpine landscapes, Logar Valley will ask you to look again at what pristine really means. And once you see its meadows, waterfalls, and hand-built farms, you'll understand why this quiet corner has become a focal point for those who want to preserve Europe's wild cultural landscapes. Sete Cidades hosts one of the planet's rare twin lake calderas, where two lakes of different colors sit side by side inside a single volcanic crater. Do you know why the twin lakes of Sete Cidades, one emerald, one deep blue, appear to clash in color, though they share the same basin? Scientists point to depth differences, microscopic algae, and how sunlight filters through mineral-rich waters. But the real story mixes geology and local legend. Local myth says the two hues are the tears of a princess and her shepherd, lovers whose sorrow painted the water forever. Beneath those romantic tales lies a caldera rim, carved by explosive eruptions and then collapsed, creating the sheltered amphitheater that cradles Lagoa Verde and Lagoa Azul. The narrow strait that links them is shallow and often hides the subtle exchange of water that keeps their identities distinct. Hikers who cross the ridge between viewpoints can watch sunlight chase ripples, turning one lake jade and the other to cobalt within minutes. Photographers come for that living contrast, but scientists come for the unique microclimates and endemic plant communities that cling to the crater slopes. In hidden coves, rare amphibians and mosses thrive in the humid pockets fed by volcanic fog and mineral-scented springs. Agricultural terraces and tiny hamlets on the caldera floor testify to a human story of resilience where fields prosper on porous volcanic soils. Fishermen talk about sudden shifts in color after storms, when suspended volcanic particles and runoff alter how light reflects on the surface. Conservationists warn that rising tourism and introduced species could blur the very contrasts that make Ceahlău exceptional. Protecting this twin wonder means balancing visitor access with strict monitoring of water chemistry, invasive plants, and sediment flow. And for anyone who stops at the crater's rim, the site is a question. Was it geology, biology, or something more human that painted these two mirrors so differently? High in Albania's accursed mountains, Valbona Valley shelters glacial cirques and limestone ridges so pristine, they rival many alpine pine basins in Europe. Do you know Valbona Valley harbors endemic wildflowers and fauna adapted to a climate more typical of the far north than the Balkans? Local shepherds still practice transhumance, moving flocks between lowland pastures and high alpine meadows on routes used for centuries. These living traditions create a patchwork of hayfields, stone cottages, and terraced slopes that stitch human history into the wild landscape. The Valbona River cuts the valley floor with crystalline waters that trace melt from hidden cirque lakes beneath the 1,000-meter peaks. Follow its narrow trail, and you'll climb to viewpoints where jagged silhouettes of the Proclitije range pierce the sky like weathered cathedrals. Walk the ridges and you'll understand why borders drawn on maps never truly held this landscape, which connects Albania, Montenegro, and Kosovo in limestone and legend. By following the valley's streams downstream, travelers find themselves not only witnessing wild beauty, but tracing centuries of human resilience. And as the sun lifts away from the needles of the pines, Valbona reveals secrets that reward patience. Hidden waterfalls, shepherds' chants, and high pastures painted with wild thyme. This is a place where geology, culture, and solitude meet, asking visitors to slow down and listen to the slopes themselves. Stay, and the valley will fold you into its rhythms, sending you onward toward other Balkan highlands with a new respect for what endures. Valbona Valley may be small, but its voice echoes across the accursed mountains, calling those who seek real wilderness and living history. The rest of our journey will follow that echo, from narrow stone bridges to high passes where the Balkans reveal themselves, one valley at a time. Next to top sandstone giants, Greece's Meteora is home to one of the world's most concentrated clusters of vertical rock pillars, hosting medieval monasteries. Do you know that these towering columns were created by rivers depositing sediments millions of years ago, and then sculpted by wind and water into near vertical cliffs? The name Meteora literally means suspended in the air, a fitting label for monasteries clinging to pinnacles hundreds of meters above the valley. What few visitors realize is that some of these monasteries remained unreachable by foot until monks and locals engineered rope ladders and basket winches to haul people and supplies upward. Monks risked dizzying ascents and relied on ingenuity to preserve spiritual solitude, sealing off access to protect their fragile communities. Hidden chambers inside the rocks hold frescoes, manuscripts, and relics whose survival from Ottoman periods feels almost miraculous. Geologists will tell you the formations are a unique combination of hard conglomerate, overlying softer layers that eroded unevenly, leaving the pillars standing like natural towers. Birds and rare alpine plants find microclimates in crevices, creating isolated ecosystems that are both fragile and strangely rich. The visual drama intensified history. Invaders struggled to reach the monasteries, while pilgrims made extreme journeys for maintenance and preservation of knowledge. Little known fact, Some monastic communities operated clandestinely as centers of printing and manuscript copying, helping to preserve Greek language and Orthodox tradition during turbulent centuries. Walking the narrow paths between pillars today feels like stepping into a suspended world where human devotion merged with geological time. Photographers chase the golden light that strikes sheer faces at dawn, revealing striations that map epochs of climate and change. From Meteora's stone pinnacles, we trace a cultural spine across Greece, moving toward the olive groves and myth-haunted slopes that link these vertical sanctuaries to the wider landscape. Next, the journey winds toward mountains where gods once roamed, and villages still hold stories that echo the endurance seen among Meteora's monks. Conservationists now balance tourism with preservation, using careful visitor limits and restoration projects to protect frescoes and fragile rock faces from erosion and human infot. Recent studies revealed tiny plant species on certain ledges that exist nowhere else on Earth, making Meteora not just a cultural treasure, but a biological hotspot as well. Even the construction techniques used by monks are studied for their lightweight ingenuity, offering lessons in low-impact architecture that resonates with modern sustainability efforts. As sunlight fades and shadows pool between pillars, the silence becomes almost palpable, a reminder that these stones have kept secrets for millennia. Ceahlău Massif shelters one of Europe's most concentrated altitudinal relic forests, where subalpine flora survives just 47 kilometers from the Black Sea. Do you know Ceahlău Massif holds Uvac Peak, where clouds sometimes gather beneath the summit, forming a living sea of mist locals call the throne of the gods? Trails carved by shepherds and centuries of pilgrims wind from dense spruce into wind-sculpted alpine meadows. The massif's granite bones bear glacial cirques and cliffs that have channeled rivers into dramatic canyons, like the nearby Vikos Gorge. At the massif's foot, the emerald waters of Lacul Roșu, the Red Lake, were born when a landslide dammed a mountain river in the 19th century. The lake mirrors jagged peaks and carries tales of the villagers who witnessed its birth. Higher up, rare orchids and endemic mountain herbs cling to thin soils, recorded by botanists as species surviving since the last ice age. Chamois and brown bears move through the massif's shadow, their tracks crossing ancient pilgrimage routes to Ceahlău Monastery. Ceahlău itself is a mosaic of wooden chapels and stone hermitages where icons are smudged by votive candles and mountain salt. Pilgrims climb and leave simple offerings at rock shrines, reinforcing Ceahlău's reputation as both natural cathedral and spiritual crossroad. Geologists speak of Ceahlău as a compact playground of tectonic folds and thrust faults, revealing Romania's turbulent geological past. caves cut into limestone hide, fossilized plants and seeds, time capsules that help scientists reconstruct climates from millennia ago. In storm season, thunder rolls across the ridges and the massive microclimates switch from sunlit meadows to hail-lashed slopes in minutes. Those sudden changes forged local customs, dishes, clothing, and songs adapted to survive mountain caprices and long winter snows. From the summits, sightlines stitch Ceahlău to the eastern Carpathians, to neighboring Bistrița valleys and the red ribbons of the Vikos road. Each vista creates new routes for explorers, alpine botanists, pilgrims, climbers, and photographers who chase the massive's shifting moods. Scientific stations tucked near forest edges study air quality and endemic species, documenting how isolated mountain islands respond to warming. Conserving Ceahlău means protecting waterways that feed downstream communities and the cultural memory embedded in shepherd songs. By following a single ridge, you can trace the mountain's story from geologic upheaval to human legend and then beyond into Romania's broader landscape. This is where natural history and human devotion meet, and where the massive quietly demands to be known, not merely visited. As hikers descend toward Vikos, the gorge funnels them into villages sculpted by time, where stone houses remember Ottoman and Moldavian crossroads. Every step down feels like reading an atlas of Europe's lesser-known wonders, with Ceahlău as one of its most secret chapters. The Helgeland coast in Norway is one of the planet's rare archipelagos where granite peaks and thousands of skerries rise almost vertically from the sea, sculpted by the last ice age into abrupt islands and narrow channels. Do you know the Helgeland coast conceals Vega, a UNESCO biosphere island where traditional eider duck husbandry and human-led conservation have persisted for centuries? From the puffin colonies of Logar to the hole-punched silhouette of Torghatten, each island reads like a chapter of geological drama. Night brings the midnight sun in summer and a mirror-like ocean that can reflect the Seven Sisters Mountains so perfectly, sailors say the peaks appear to float on water. Local fishermen still navigate by ancient channels between skerries that funnel currents and create sudden swirls and glassy basins. In winter, when northern lights sweep above and sheltered bays glass over, the coastline's scale becomes intimate and cathedral-like again. Yet even in the quiet months, The islands hum with human resilience. Coastal farms, tiny wharves, and bridges painted red against the snow. To travel Helgeland is to follow an ancient chain. Islands leading to islands, stories passed down by fishermen and bird wardens, each place opening the next like a hinge. You leave with a map of impressions rather than a checklist, a smell of seaweed, the tumble of gulls, the memory of cliffs that refuse to be measured by maps. And the Helgeland coast keeps one more secret. In summer, the low light sculpts every rock and inlet into colors so subtle they seem invented, urging you to return eastward. The Rhodopes Mountains cradle the largest network of marble karst caves in the Balkans, including the Devil's Throat, whose subterranean river disappears into a cavernous maw. Do you know the Rhodope Mountains are linked to the myth of Orpheus, and that in hidden meadows botanists still find plant species endemic to this range? From the mist-soaked ridgelines that flow southward from Rila, the Rhodopes rewrite the map of Europe's biodiversity with isolated glades that feel frozen in time. Villages here preserve living traditions, ancient polyphonic songs, stone-carved houses, and shepherding practices unchanged for centuries. Beneath the forest canopy, underground rivers carve marble galleries where stalactites drip with minerals older than modern borders. Archaeologists at Perperikon uncovered an enormous Thracian sanctuary on a rocky plateau, suggesting this was a ritual landscape long before the Roman road cut through the valleys. Wildlife keeps its secrets in shadowed gorges. Brown bears, wolves, and reintroduced vultures patrol a mosaic of beech forests and sunlit pastures. Local healers still gather rare herbs here, remnants of folk medicine that once traveled along Balkan trade routes to distant capitals. Stone bridges arch like frozen time across mountain streams, linking hamlets whose names whisper in half-forgotten dialects. Hikers who follow ancient mule tracks can step from myth-soaked caverns into vineyards where resilient grape varieties trace genetic lines to Thracian soils. Seasonal mists create optical illusions. Entire cliffs vanish and reappear, altering how locals navigate these labyrinthine slopes. Stay long enough, and you might hear a shepherd's long-voiced lament echoing from a ridge, a living thread tying geology, history, and song. The Rhodopes are not just a place to visit, but a puzzle, layers of myth, chants, and culture that insist you look closer. In the next segment, we follow a stone path down into Devil's Throat and into the subterranean world that shaped local ritual and legend. Vikos Gorge in Greece is often measured as the world's deepest gorge relative to its width, plunging nearly a kilometer, where the canyon narrows to mere tens of meters. Do you know Vikos Gorge shelters over 1,000 plant species, including relict and endemic flora, that survived the ice ages in its sheltered microclimates? Carved from pale limestone by the ancient Valbona River and relentless glacial waters, its sheer cliffs reveal millions of years of geological memory. The karst terrain gives rise to caves, natural springs, and the emerald ribbon of the Valbona, whose crystalline waters are among Europe's purest. Walking the stone trails between traditional Zagori villages feels like tracing a line between human history and wild geology. Old stone bridges, some built centuries ago, still connect shepherd paths and whisper of settlers who tamed this rugged landscape. In the gorge's deep pockets, rare herbs and orchids cling to vertical walls where sunlight is scarce and humidity remains high. Scientists have found species here that are either isolated relicts or unique hybrids, making Vikos a living laboratory for evolution. Local legends speak of nymphs and heroes, and those stories live on in the names of ravines, springs, and hidden chapels. Hikers who descend the zigzag paths report a sense of otherworldly silence broken only by monasteries and the occasional cry of a raptor. The geology that shaped Vikos extends across the Pindus Range, linking its raw canyons to the limestone pillars that rise elsewhere in Greece. That same stonework connects this remote corner to the timeless monasteries and plateaus where human and natural history intertwine. Conservation efforts now balance traditional pastoral life with protection of endemic species and fragile habitats. Visiting the gorge is to witness how landscapes sculpt culture, as sheepfolds, dry stone walls, and villages nestle against towering cliffs. Its narrow paths can lead you from a village square into primeval silence in less than an hour. Every stone bridge and cave mouth is a doorway into stories that stretch from the last ice age to the present day. To approach Vikos Gorge is to step into a living chronicle where Europe's wild heart still beats strong. Uvac Canyon in Serbia hosts one of the world's most sinuous river meanders, carved into limestone cliffs over millennia and reaching astounding depths rarely found elsewhere. Do you know Uvac Canyon shelters one of Europe's largest colonies of griffon vultures, where wingspans of over 2.5 meters dominate the thermals above the churning turquoise river? From panoramic viewpoints, the river coils like a living map, creating hidden bays and sheer amphitheaters of stone. Beneath those cliffs lie caves and underground passages that store secret pools and fossil records of climates long gone. The canyon's karst landscape is threaded with sinkholes and lapis fields that look more like a moonscape than continental Europe. Local boatmen know channels that tuck beneath overhangs, guiding visitors into quiet meanders where echoes tell stories of ancient floods. At sunrise, the cliffs light up and the griffins ride rising air, their silhouettes tracing slow, noble circles against limestone walls. Conservation efforts here have reversed alarming declines, turning Uvac into a rare conservation success in the Balkan wilderness. Small shepherd villages cling to plateaus above the gorge, their stone houses and terraced fields preserving centuries of mountain life. Traditional cheese and smoked lamb taste like the landscape itself, born of winds, herbs, and the slow rhythm of grazing flocks. Scientists come to study unique microclimates where endemic plants hide in sheltered niches carved by the river's bends. Photographers risk slick ledges for that impossible shot, where water, light, and wake form a natural cathedral. The river's meanders are not static. They migrate over decades, reshaping habitats and surprising biologists with new islands and reed beds. A silent system of trails and lookout points connects Uvac to neighboring Zlatibor and Tara, linking human paths with ancient waterways. In winter, frost etches the canyon rim, and the vultures descend less often, turning the landscape into a quiet map of stone and silence. But come spring, the river surges with meltwater, resculpting beaches and inviting otters and herons back to their ancestral foraging grounds. Every bend seems to hold a secret: a sunken boat, a fossil bed, or a grove of wild orchids clinging to a ledge. To stand at the rim is to hold a living archive, where geology, weather, and life write their intertwined history. Uvac is not just a canyon, it is a narrative of resilience, where human stewardship and raw natural power negotiate a fragile peace. Exploring it will change how you think about European wild places and set the stage for the next hidden wonder over the ridge. The Guadalquivir River has carved Ronda's cliffs into an urban gorge plunging nearly 120 meters, one of the deepest in Europe. Do you know that the Puente Nuevo Bridge was built around a chamber that once served as a prison? And look out over the gorge. Beneath the bridge, the limestone reveals fossilized seashells and strata that whisper of an ancient seabed lifted by tectonic drama. The sheer rock faces host colonies of griffon vultures and peregrine falcons that use the thermal winds to launch spectacular hunts over the whitewashed town. Ronda's cliffs were not only geological theater, but strategic stagecraft. The town's layout pivots on the gorges like a fortress of observation. Within stone alleys, you can still find Moorish baths, Roman-era foundations, and 18th century plazas stitched together along ridgelines. Locals carved narrow balconied streets that lean over the void, where sunlight splits and paints the limestone in gold and blood red at dusk. Artists and exiles have long claimed Ronda's vistas as muse, with Hemingway and Orson Welles both returning to watch the light fracture on the gorge. Underneath the Puente Nuevo, a small museum and viewing chamber reveal the bridge's darker past as a political prison during Spain's turbulent 19th century conflicts. Travelers who come for the view often stay for the mystery, following narrow routes out of Ronda toward the white villages tucked in the surrounding sierras. From the cliff tops, you can set your compass for Grazalema or Ceahlău and feel how each valley keeps a different secret of Andalusian geology and history. In Ronda, the earth reads like a layered ledger of time, where marine fossils, Moorish walls, and modern balconies share the same vertical address. Stand at the railing, listen to the river far below, and you will understand why this cliffside town has seduced explorers for centuries. Tomorrow, We'll follow those wind-carved ridgelines outward to villages whose architecture clings to cliffs in ways that echo Ronda's own daring. But for now, let Ronda's Gorge be the hinge that swings the story of Andalusia open, revealing how geology and human history are braided together. From the molten gaps of Iceland's rift valleys to the silent blue caverns of the Mediterranean, Europe stitches extremes into a single landscape. Every waterfall, fjord, and sun-baked terrace is a chapter in a continent-sized story, written by ice, fire, tides, and time. We followed rivers that carve borders and roads that thread mountain buoys, watching how geology and human hands shape the same places is. Each island and plain, each forest and glacial tongue passes its character like a torch to the next region, creating unexpected links across languages and centuries. You saw where tectonic plates push continents apart, where ocean currents swarm with life, and where tiny villages have kept ancient rituals alive. These connections mean a single journey can feel like stepping through a gallery of Earth's most intimate experiments. If Europe taught us anything here, it is that continuity often hides in contrasts, and that to travel these places is to read the margins of natural history. So go on, carry these flashpoints of wonder with you. Let them redraw your map of what a single continent can hold. And when you return, tell the story that connects them all.